Hello, this is Lady B, and it is almost Mother's Day. Now, my own mother is no longer with us, but my mother-in-law is, and I have sisters and nieces. So, for Mother's Day this year, I decided to make them some custom bracelets using this beading wire. It's a 7-strand beading wire that you use along with these crimp beads and these lobster clasps that I can use to make bracelets for them. It's the same process I use to make my emergency alert bracelets that I wear for myself, but these are not going to be for me. Now, if you do have to wear an emergency alert bracelet and you want to use this to make your own, you can do this with the exact same process, and I will show you how. But this is for some gifts for family members. And for that, I have picked up some beads I'll be using. There is these red and black ones with these ladybugs. I picked up some jade with some silver. I'm not sure what they are. I'll find out when I open it. And then I picked up some, this is waggerite beads, but they look similar to turquoise, which I know they're not, but the person this is for looks really good in turquoise. So I'm going to have a little fun and make those to give away. You can see here I have everything that you're going to need to do this. You need your latch, the lobster clasp I just showed you, along with the O-rings. I have these in multiple colors that they will be attaching to. You need your crafting wire and your crimping beads. With those, you need a crimping tool. This is what crimps the wire and makes it unmoving so that your wire does not slip. You need wire cutters to cut your wire to the correct size. If you do not have wire cutters and you have needle nose pliers, they come built in. You can use those instead. Here's an example of some needle nose pliers, and you can see here in the middle, right there, that is that little round area, that is a wire cutter. You need a fabric measuring tape or a ruler and a piece of string. Now, I also recommend that you get some type, I use felt. This is just a piece of inexpensive felt I have bought for using for this, but some type of fabric that's thick enough that things won't roll on it, and then a bead tray to hold your loose beads when you are not actually using them on the felt. This just keeps you from having to run around and pull them out of off the floor and go looking under furniture for them when your beads roll away, as they will if you do not have something with a rim. Now, this beading tray is actually just the lid off of a recyclable plastic container that I have just kept because it works. And I keep it in my craft bag, and it works perfectly for me. And then, of course, we have the beads. I have my variety of beads. There's some here, and there's more over here if I need them. So I'm now going to show you why I have this tray. This is a personal preference. You don't have to do this. But when I buy these beads, I don't leave them on these strands. I will clip them off using the wire cutters. It's not wire they have, it's a type of plastic, but the wire cutter works perfectly. And I'll just take them off, and then I buy these. And you can find these. These are just little plastic bags you can find in the craft aisles, especially where they have the beading. And their purpose is to put these beads in and anything else you may need to store in them. So this way, whatever I use, see, and that's a larger bag than I need. I actually have smaller ones too. So these are the two other sizes I have. You can see how they compare in size from larger to smaller. Some of them will come with this white on it on one side, and this is so you can write on it what it is that's in it. And then the ones that are blank, if you don't care, just lets you see through. I'm going to transfer these to the one with the white on it so I can write what kind of stone it is on it so I don't forget with any of the beads I don't actually use. And I'm just going to bag the rest of these too. And I will be right back. Sometimes with these glass beads, you'll take them off the string and you'll discover that you have one that's broken. Fortunately, with the glass, most of them, they're really easy to fix. All you need is a little of the E6000. Just drop a touch on it, and then use a toothpick to make sure to spread the glue without getting it in the hole. And then just hold that firmly. And most of the time, once that dries, you won't even be able to see with the glass beads where you glued it. So let's set you to the side to dry. Our sad little ladybug lost its head. Now, when it comes to some of these strands, you'll get multiple types of beads on these. And this is another reason why I break these down into smaller ones. Because maybe I want to use some of the beads, but not all of the beads. So I will buy a couple of strands of the same thing, and then I will break them down into their separate types of beads. Now, if you want to follow the pattern they have, take a picture first. But I find that if you try to pull them off the thing one at a time, it's really easy for them to get spilled and go everywhere, and then you get frustrated and disappointed. So I just find it easier to separate them and use them as needed. So the very first thing you need to do to make a bracelet like this is you need to measure the wrist around the bony part of the wrist right here. Now, I wear these gloves all the time, so when I measure, I do it over my gloves. I'm a little inflamed today, so my measurement is a little larger than usual. But you can see here, when I measure that snugly, how that is 8 inches. Get that there. So my wrist measurement today, at least, is 8 inches. Now, as I said, I'm making these as presents for others. So I have actually spent the last week running around getting everybody's wrist measurements, which is kind of funny. So once you have that measurement, you need to do your bead counting. And for that, you need a measuring tape or ruler here on this. I'm going to switch out for a ruler, so I'll be right back. Okay, I have set this up with my yardstick. Normally I would not use my yardstick. I would use my shorter metal ruler. It's an 18-inch ruler, but the numbers are kind of hard to see on the camera, so I'm using my yardstick. The point is, I have this ruler set up here with my felt. Now, your total number that you need to count your beads to, whatever the size of that is going to be the number you just took off your wrist, which in my case is 8, plus 1/4 to 1/2 inch, depending on the size of beads you're using. If you are using smaller beads, like these, you would only add up to 1/4, and that's just for that extra give for the bulk from the bead itself. However, if you were using an extremely bulky bead, like say these ones, which I will not be using today, you would want to add a 1/2 inch, or if they're big enough, possibly more, but usually I find a 1/2 inch is enough. So my 8 inches, smaller thing, plus 1/4 inch makes it 8 1/4. And then you need to subtract the size of your clasp. Now for standard bracelets like what I'm doing today, my basic clasp is just under 3/4 of an inch. So my total bead count would need to be 7.5 inches. If I was going to be making it for the emergency alert bracelet, those are made by attaching one of these. It's the emergency alert tag, and then rather than the circle and clasp, unless you are, if you want to change them out, you use 2 lobster clasps. If you just want it to be a permanent type of bracelet where you just attach it as you go, it would be a clasp on one side and a O-ring on the other. Either way, that measurement with the 2 clasps is 2 and almost 1/4. So for this style, I would actually go down to 6 inches, because it would be that 8 1/4 minus 2 1/4, giving me 6 inches. We are not doing this today. But that is the only difference. If you want to make an emergency bracelet, that's all you have to do. Either 2 lobster clasps or a lobster clasp on one side and a O-ring on the other, and you just subtract it from your count. So now the question is, what is counting your beads? Well, counting your beads is taking your beads ahead of time, planning out your pattern for the size that you need. Now, they make really nice bead boards you can buy at craft stores and online for this. But I just use my felt and a ruler, and I do just fine. So, for an example, the very first bracelet I'm going to make is using these turquoises for someone who has a wrist measurement of 6.5 inches. Now, none of the beads are going to be very big, so I just need to bring that up to 6 3/4, and then minus the latch, which this is the one I will be using, which is 3/4, which means my total measurement is 6. So I need to come up with a pattern with my beads that is 6 inches. But first I need to actually take my beads off of these. So give me a second to take care of that, and I will be right back. So I have now bagged all of my beads. Now it's time for me to count them. So what this means is I'm going to lay my beads out for that final measurement of 6 inches in a pattern that I like. Now for this very first one, I will be using these little interesting silver. They're little teeny links, silver links of chain. But by putting the wire through each of those loops, it will let me create this really cool kind of oval link silver thing in the middle. And the person I'm making this first one for not only looks good in turquoise, she really looks good in silver. So I need to come up with a pattern that will take 6 inches and uses silver. And another silver piece I might use for her is these little, I have these little round silver beads here. They're unfortunately mixed in with some other things. I didn't separate those as I should. As you're buying these beads, a lot of them will come with these little extra beads at the ends of them. And I have had collected them and just tossed them into this bag. So it looks like I have 4 of them right now, these silver ones right here. And I also have these flower-like ones that were also used as spacer beads. And either of those could work to add some additional silver. Now, obviously I have a couple more silver beads over there, but they're too large for what I need. Oh, there's another one. I have 5 of those. Excellent. And plenty of the roses. If it will look good, I will definitely use them. So, let me think of a pattern. Okay. So it's not perfect, but I'm pretty sure I have it, and I can check it as I go. My beads are kind of odd shaped, so it's really hard to tell for sure. Normally, I can just line them up and it's good, but I'm using turtles, so you get what you get. So the first thing I need to do is I need to cut a length of my beading wire. And you want at least 4 extra inches past whatever your length you're working with is. I've done this more than that because I just like to be sure. And I'm going to take a crimping bead and put it through the wire through the bead. Assuming I can see well enough. There we go. And then I'm going to take my lobster clasp and also put the wire through it. And I give myself plenty of space here. And I'm going to double this over and put it back through my crimping wire. Oh, and then let go and have it undo itself. Okay, try that again. Back through the crimping wire. There we go. Hold on to that. And I'm slip my crimping bead all the way up so it's nice and snug against my clasp. And now I take my crimpers. Now, if you look at your crimpers, there are 2 sections to them. I'm trying to get this where you can see it really well. Does this show better? If you look at the teeth, one of them comes together with a loop and a loop, and on the other one, there's an extra tooth that goes in. This inside one, there's an extra tooth piece. So the first thing you're going to do is use the inside one where it has an extra piece in. And you line your wires up so they're side by side. And as you crimp that with that extra bump in there, it is going to separate your wires to either side and put your crimping bead with into a kind of a, it will be flat on one side and then it will bump in the middle, and you'll have a wire on one and a wire on the other. And you just do that by laying your crimping bead in your, let's see if you can see that. You just lay your crimping bead inside the thing and just press down. And it just does it for you. Now, it looks like this. Let's see if you can see that. And now I'm going to take it and I'm going to stick it in the other side that just has the single loop. And I'm going to place it, it's kind of flat. It's kind of flat like this. And I'm going to place it so the flat is pointing up and down. And I'm going to put it in the side that just has the circle and crimp again. And it squeezes those two together, making it one smaller piece. And if you've done it right, it will be tight and there will be no movement. Now, I like to leave a little bit of wire that goes inside the other beads, but I had more than I need, so I cut off my excess. And now all I do is go through in the order that I have set these and put them on my wire. Okay, so this is not going to work. like I thought, because this blue bead here, if you look at that, that blue bead is too big to go between those legs. So I'm going to have to go back to my count and figure out a new pattern. So I have used these little beads I just told you about that come with as the little extras. I've added them as little clear spacers between each of the legs to put something there as a spacer, and I have refigured my beads. Now, where did my cord go? Ah, found you. So now I just have to restring it with the new pattern. So let's see what happens. There we go. So now I check my size, and that is just barely over 6 inches, which means I did a good job on that. That is pretty close. I'm happy with that. So again, I'm going to take my crimping bead, put my wire through it. I'm going to take my O-ring, and I'm going to take my needle nose pliers, and I'm going to make sure that it is secure, because often they are just slightly offset because you're expected to open and then close them. All right. Okay, so I put my wire through my loop, through my O-ring. I'm going to pass it back through my crimping bead and through at least one more bead also, if not 2. I'm going to do 2. And then once that's on, you pull it tight. There we go. Now my total length, now if you'll remember, I wanted my total length to be 6 3/4. So before I permanently attach this, I'm going to measure, and look at that. I am just past 6 3/4. I'm at like 6 3/4 and an additional 1/8. So that is perfect. So now I come back in with my crimpers, and again, first using the one with the bend in it. I lay my crimping bead on the channel and press down. Come on. And then I come back in and squeeze. And if I did that right, it should be secure. If I didn't do that right, then I can always take off the crimping bead by pressing on it over and over again until it breaks. Okay. And that is good. And it's okay if you have a little bit of give here at the end, because as you turn it around and latch it, that little bit of space, the beads will nudge up on each other. Oh, she has a small wrist, doesn't she? But there it is, it's done. First one. Now I just have 5 more to go. So, set that aside and get to work on the rest of them. And that is the last one. Finished. All 6 of them. It took me about 2-3 hours, between 20 and 30 minutes each, including counting all the beads out. But they're done. Now, this is the easiest way I know to actually make one of these bracelets. but they do have a fault in that there is no give. This is a metal cord, and it's really strong, but if you put enough pressure on it, it will break. And I have done this where I was wearing one on my wrist and I wasn't paying attention, and I leaned that wrist up against a corner of a wall right against it, and it split my bracelet. And I then ended up spending the next 5 minutes picking beads up off the floor of our community center floor in the changing rooms, which wasn't a lot of fun. But it is easy, and they are, as long as you don't put that kind of stress on them, they do actually last a long time. And there it is. The bracelets I have made for my family members. I'm going to put a picture here or somewhere that you can see it. Now, if you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe, and I will see you next week. Until then, whether making bracelets or anything else you may be crafting for yourself or others on this coming Mother's Day, just remember, don't be afraid to suit yourself and make whatever it is you do exclusively you.